Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades. From the streets to the throne, built an empire all their own. Face the mob, face the law. Never bent, never saw. In the shadows, in the light, moving silent through the night. Every move was calculated, every win was celebrated. Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Gangsta Swagger. Now look, I know what you're thinking. Another gangster story. Nah, this ain't that at all. See, we've all been fed the same narratives over and over. The violence, the downfall, the crime doesn't pay, morality tale, caution tales. But tonight, I'm going to show you the swagger, the intelligence, the style, the sheer audacity that it took for black folk to rise in a world designed to keep them at the bottom. And we're starting with royalty. So get comfortable. Pour yourself something nice. Light that cigar up, you got one. You hear that? You see how I let it play? Because that music, it brings out the gangster in me. Not the ugly gangster, but the suave, sophisticated gangster. Makes me want to grab a cigar myself, as a matter of fact. I got me a cigar. Go ahead and grab my Godfather hat and put on me a three-piece suit. Check my pocket watch. See what time it is. Just chilling. Walking around in my wingtip shoes with the thick and thin socks on. Yeah. That's the energy we're on tonight. So get comfortable. Let me tell you a story. Harlem, 1930s. Picture this. A black woman from Martinique came to America in 1912 with nothing. No money, no connections, no protection. She walked into a world that had exactly one job available for black women. Domestic work. Cleaning white people's houses and being invisible. She looked at that option and said, nah. Her name was Stephanie St. Clair. Yeah. And before Bumpy Johnson, before Frank Lucas, before Nicky Barnes, before any of the men that you know, there was her. Now, who was Stephanie St. Clair? Born in Martinique. Now that's over there in the French Caribbean. Around 1886. Grew up under French colonial rule. which means she already understood power structures from birth. She knew what it looked like when one group controlled everything and another group had to fight for scraps. She came to Harlem during the Great Migration. The neighborhood was filling up with black folks from the South and the Caribbean, all looking for a better life, all running from something. But here's what Stephanie walked into. She was black. She was a woman. She was an immigrant. And this was 1812 America. The only jobs, domestic work, washing clothes, scrubbing floors, making white folks comfortable. And Stephanie looked at Harlem and saw something no one else saw. She saw opportunity. See, back then Harlem had this underground lottery system called the numbers game. You bet a few pennies on a 3-digit number based on something random. Stock market numbers, horse race results, whatever. If your number hit, you'd win. Maybe 601 odd. It was illegal though. But it was everywhere. Poor folks played it because it was the only shot at real money that they had. A nickel bet could turn into real money, rent money, food money. It could turn into hope. And the game was run by small-time operators. Mostly men. Mostly disorganized. Mostly dishonest. They take your money and disappear when you won. Stephanie St. Clair looked at the game and said, I can run this better than any of these men. And she was right. She started small, taking bets, running numbers. But here's what made her different. She was fair. She paid out when the people won. She didn't cheat her customers. She treated people with respect. In a game full of hustlers and scammers, Stephanie built something people could trust. And trust in Harlem in the 1920s? That's the currency. By the mid-1920s, Stephanie St. Clair wasn't just running numbers. She was running Harlem's numbers. She had runners all over the neighborhood, dozens of people on her payroll. She gave black folks jobs when nobody else would hire them. She paid them well. She protected them. She made money, real money, and she didn't hide it either. Fur coats, full-length minks, sables, diamond jewelry, rings, necklace, earrings, nice cars, Cadillacs, luxury vehicles. She dressed like royalty because in Harlem, she was royalty. They started calling her Madam Queen, and not as a joke, but as a title, because in Harlem, she was royalty. They started calling her the Madam Queen. People respected her. They feared her, admired her. When she walked down Lenox Avenue, crowds would part, not because she was violent, but because she commanded respect on sight. Now, think about this. A black woman in 1920s America, an immigrant, building a financial empire in an illegal industry. Every single day, she had targets on her back from the police who wanted to bribe, from rivals who wanted her territory, from society which just wanted her to be invisible, and then later from the mob. Now, When I say the mob, I'm talking about the Italian mafia, specifically a man named Dutch Schultz. Dutch Schultz was a problem. Violent, ruthless, unpredictable. He was taking over every racket in New York. Bootlegging during Prohibition, extortion, gambling, numbers, everything. And by the early 1930s, he wanted Harlem. See, the Italian mob looked at Harlem and saw nothing but money. They saw black ran operations making serious cash, and they wanted in. Dutch Schultz started putting pressure on all the black numbers operators. He sent enforcers. He made threats. He offered deals, if you want to call it that, which meant, give me everything or I'll take it anyway. Most people folded. They sold out. They took whatever the deal was and disappeared. But not Stephanie St. Clair. When Dutch Schultz came for her, she told him, no. Not let me think about it. Not how much. Not can we negotiate. Just no. Think about this. This is a black woman in the 1930s telling one of the most dangerous white mobsters in American history that she's not giving up her business. The audacity, the courage, the sheer swagger of that. Most men wouldn't have done that. Most organizations wouldn't have done that. But Madam Queen, she stood her ground. And please believe me, Dutch did not take that well. He sent his enforcers to rough up her runners. He tried to intimidate her customers. He spread word on the street that anyone working with Madam Queen would have problems. He thought he could break her. And Stephanie St. Clair, she took out a full-page ad in the Amsterdam News. The Amsterdam News was Harlem's biggest black newspaper. Everybody read it. And Stephanie St. Clair brought a full-page ad and called Dutch Schultz out by name. She told the whole community, this man is trying to steal from us, from your community. Don't let him. Can you believe this? A black woman publicly challenging a mob boss in a newspaper. That's not just gangster. That's legendary. Now, Stephanie wasn't stupid. She knew she couldn't out-muscle the mob. Dutch Schultz had armies of enforcers. He had connections to the police, to politicians, judges. He had resources. But Stephanie had something he didn't have. He didn't have the community. She employed people. She fed families. She was fair. When you won, she paid you. When you needed help, she showed up. Harlem loved her. They loved her. And that love, that loyalty, that was her protection. Eventually, she had to make some compromises. The pressure was too much. She had to share some territory with the Italian, but that's just reality. But she negotiated from a position of strength. She didn't get run out. She didn't disappear. She stayed in the game. And she made sure her people were protected. And here's one of the most savage moments in gangster history. October 1935. Dutch Schultz got shot, ambushed at a restaurant in Newark. He was dying. And Stephanie St. Clair, Madam Queen herself, sent him a telegram to his hospital bed. And it said, "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." Basically, you get what you deserve. The man who tried to destroy her empire was dying, and she made sure he knew she outlasted him. Now that's cold. That's gangster. Now here's something a lot of people don't know. Stephanie St. Clair mentored Bumpy Johnson. Yeah, that Bumpy Johnson, the godfather of Harlem himself. He worked for her. She taught him the game, showed him how to move, how to think, how to build power without just relying on violence. She taught him strategy. She taught him respect. She taught him how to navigate multiple worlds at once. Everything Bumpy became, he learned from the Queen. But let's talk about cost, because Gangsta Swagger ain't free. Stephanie went to prison multiple times. In 1930, she got arrested for operating an illegal lottery. She fought the case. She testified against corrupt cops who were shaking down her operation and trying to expose the system. That's what she was trying to do. She went to prison for 8 months, and when she got out, she went right back to running her business. In 1935, she shot a rival gangster during a dispute over territory. Yeah, she pulled the trigger herself. She got arrested again. More prison time. But even behind bars, her operation kept running. Her people stayed loyal. She dealt with constant surveillance, constant pressure from the mob, constant threats from corrupt cops, constant betrayal from people who wanted what she had. The stress, the violence, the fight, it never stopped. It never ceased. By the 1940s, the game was changing. The number of rackets was mostly controlled by the Italian mob now. Stephanie still had her piece, but it wasn't the empire that it used to be. She got married to a man named Sophie Abdul Hamid, a controversial activist and street speaker. That relationship was complicated, and it ended badly. Her later years were quite quiet. She stepped back from the streets, watched the neighborhood change, watched the new generation take over, and when she died in 1969, most people didn't even know who she was. The man she mentored, Bumpy Johnson, and later cats like Frank Lucas, they got the headlines, they got the movies, they got the fame, but she built the foundation they all stood on. She showed them it was possible. She proved a black person could run organized crime at the highest level with intelligence and style. So what did Stephanie St. Clair, Madam Queen, prove? She proved you don't need permission to build an empire. You don't need to wait for someone to give you a seat at the table. You build your own table. She was a black woman in the early 1900s. America's literally at the bottom of every social hierarchy. And she became one of the most powerful figures in Harlem. She proved fearlessness is a weapon. They couldn't intimidate someone who refused to be intimidated. She stood up to the mafia. She called them out publicly and survived. She used newspapers to tell her story. She made herself too visible to quietly eliminate. She defined herself instead of letting others define her. Yep, she mentored Bumpy Johnson. She employed her community. She created great opportunities for others. She didn't just get rich. She built something beyond herself. And she proved style matters. The way she dressed, the way she carried herself, the way she moved, that was intentional. She looked like royalty because she knew that she was royalty. And people treated her accordingly. Before the Godfathers, there was a queen. Stephanie St. Clair showed us what's possible when you refuse to accept the limit society puts on you. Madam Queen chose visibility as her protection. She made herself too loud to ignore, too public to quietly eliminate. In your world, is it smarter to move loud or move silent? This is Gangsta Swagger. And now, see you next Wednesday.
Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades. From the streets to the throne, built an empire all their own. Face the mob, face the law. Never bent, never saw. In the shadows, in the light, moving silent through the night. Every move was calculated, every win was celebrated. Gangster swagger, smooth and slow. Gangster swagger, steal the show. Let me tell you how they play. Gangster swagger never fades.